Okay, so you wake up, grab your coffee, sit down at your computer, try to check your email, and nothing. No internet, no connection. Nothing works. You check your Wi-Fi, connected, full bars, everything looks fine, but you can't reach anything. It's like your computer is screaming into the void and nobody's answering. Congratulations, you're experiencing address failure, and it is one of the most frustrating things in networking because everything looks like it should work, but it just doesn't. Address failure is when the addressing system itself breaks down, not your internet connection, not your router. The actual system that lets devices find each other, that's what's broken. And when addressing fails, everything fails. Because without working addresses, your network is basically a bunch of computers sitting alone in the dark, unable to find anyone else. So let's talk about how addressing breaks, why it happens, and what it looks like when it does. Address failure happens when something in the addressing system goes wrong and breaks the ability of devices to communicate. This is different from just losing your internet connection. With address failure, the underlying system that assigns addresses, validates addresses, or routes traffic based on addresses, that system is malfunctioning. And there are so many ways this can go wrong. Like an absurd number of ways. The most common one, IP address conflicts. That's when two devices on the same network have the exact same IP address. Remember how we said IP addresses are supposed to be unique? Yeah, well, sometimes they're not. And when two devices claim the same address, chaos ensues. Your computer says, I'm 192.168.1.100, and someone else's device says, no, I'm 192.168.1.100, and the network just breaks. It doesn't know who to send traffic to. Packets start going to the wrong device, connections drop randomly. Nothing works consistently, and you'll usually get an error message like IP address conflict detected, but by that point, you're already screwed. So how do you get duplicate addresses? Shouldn't DHCP prevent this? Usually, yes. DHCP is supposed to keep track of which addresses it's handed out and not give the same one twice. But sometimes things go wrong. Maybe someone configured a device with a static IP address, manually set it to 192.168, but they didn't know that the DHCP server was also handing out that address. Boom, conflict. Or maybe you have two DHCP servers on the same network, like someone plugged in a second router and didn't turn off its DHCP. Now you have two servers handing out addresses with no coordination, total disaster. Or a device's network card glitches and holds onto an old address while DHCP gives that same address to someone else. Or someone fat fingers a static IP configuration and accidentally types the same address as another device. The point is, conflicts happen, and when they do, it's bad news for everyone involved. But conflicts are just one type of address failure. There are others, subnet mismatches. This is when a device has an IP address that doesn't match the subnet it's on. Like your network is 192.168.1.0. And somehow your device ends up with 192.168.2.100. You're on the wrong subnet entirely. Your device can't talk to anything because from its perspective, everything else is on a different network. It's trying to route traffic out when it should be talking locally. Nothing works. Then there's gateway failures. Your gateway, usually your router, is the address that all traffic goes through to reach the internet. It's typically something like 192.168.1.1. If that gateway address becomes unreachable, maybe the router crashed, maybe someone misconfigured it, maybe the address changed, your devices have nowhere to send internet-bound traffic. Local network works fine, but you can't reach anything outside. DHCP failure is another big one. If your DHCP server goes down or runs out of addresses to assign, new devices can't get IP addresses at all. They just don't get an address. No address means no connectivity. They're invisible to the network. And don't even get me started on DNS failures. Okay, technically DNS isn't addressing, but it fails in similar ways. You have a perfectly good IP address, everything's configured correctly, but DNS isn't working, so you can't resolve names to addresses. You can ping 8.888, but you can't reach google.com. It feels like an address failure, even though the addressing itself is fine. So what does it actually look like when addressing fails? Usually, it's inconsistent behavior. Some things work, some things don't. You can reach some devices but not others. Connections drop randomly. Pages half load. With an IP conflict, you might be able to browse the internet for 30 seconds, then it stops working, then it works again. That's because traffic is bouncing between the two conflicting devices unpredictably. With a subnet mismatch, you can't reach anything at all. Your computer thinks it needs to route everything through the gateway, even for local stuff, and nothing works. With a gateway failure, local stuff works perfectly. You can print to your network printer. You can access your NAS, but nothing on the internet loads. That's the telltale sign. With DHCP failure, devices show no IP address or show something like 169.254.x. That's an API address, which is basically your computer saying, I tried to get an address from DHCP, got nothing, so I'm making one up. Good luck. The frustrating thing about address failure is that it's not always obvious what's broken. Everything looks configured, Wi-Fi is connected, cables are plugged in, but the underlying addressing is toast. So how do you figure out what's actually wrong? First, check for IP conflicts. Most operating systems will tell you if there's a conflict detected. On Windows, you'll get a notification. On Mac, you'll see it in Network Preferences. That's your smoking gun. Second, verify your IP configuration. What's your IP address? What's your subnet mask? What's your gateway? Does it all make sense? Analytical. Are you on the right subnet? You can do this with ipconfig on Windows or ifconfig on Mac, Linux. Look at those numbers. Do they make sense for your network? Third, test the gateway. Can you ping your gateway address? If you can't reach your gateway, that's your problem. Either the gateway is down or you have the wrong gateway configured. Fourth, test DNS separately from addressing. Can you ping an IP address like 8.8.8? If yes, addressing works. Can you reach google.com? If no, it's DNS, not addressing. Fifth, check for DHCP issues. Look at your IP address. Is it 169.254.x API? Don't assume. Test each piece. The good news is, most address failures are preventable. For conflicts, use DHCP reservations for devices that need consistent addresses. Don't just randomly assign static IPs, coordinate with your DHCP server. Make sure there's only one DHCP server on your network. For subnet issues, document your network properly. Know what subnets you're using. Don't randomly change IP configurations. Use consistent addressing schemes. For gateway problems, have redundancy. Consider backup gateways. Monitor your router's health. For DHCP exhaustion, make sure your DHCP pool is large enough for all your devices. Monitor how many addresses are in use. Adjust your pool size if needed. And in general, be careful with manual configurations. Every time you manually set an IP address, you're introducing potential for failure. DHCP exists for a reason. Here's what address failure teaches us about networking. Addressing is foundational. When addressing works, you don't think about it. It's invisible. Devices find each other, traffic flows, everything's great. But when addressing breaks, everything breaks. Because addressing is the foundation that everything else builds on. Without working addresses, you can't route traffic. You can't establish connections. You can't do anything. It's like trying to have a conversation when nobody has names. How do you talk to someone if you can't identify them? You can't. That's address failure. The systems we've built, DNS, routing protocols, firewalls, applications, they all assume addressing works. When it doesn't, the whole stack collapses. So the next time you can't connect and everything looks fine but nothing works, think about addressing. Check for conflicts. Verify your configuration. Test your gateway. Because address failure is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself with flashing lights and error messages. It just quietly breaks everything while making it look like something else is wrong. But now you know what to look for. You know how addressing breaks and how to diagnose it. You know the difference between a conflict, a subnet mismatch, and a gateway failure. And honestly, That knowledge will save you so much troubleshooting time, because you won't waste hours checking cables and rebooting routers when the real problem is just two devices fighting over the same IP address.